Honkai Star Rail version 2.2 was very interesting, and that is an understatement. While I was playing though, I realized that there was something peculiar about the story, and that really got me thinking. Of course, I'm not talking about the obvious similarities with music, the symphony, the Grand Theater looking like the Domus Aurea. Well, those are valid points, but I think that there's something deeper still. But first, this is a theory video. I will use information available in both games, but my theories and conclusions are not to be considered the official lore of the game, unless I get something right and it's confirmed in a later update of the game itself. Now, the main reason why I decided to make this video is that these two games have been hinting at each other's next missions for a while now, and Star Rail 2.2 really went down hard this time. Considering that Dainslev is, hopefully, coming back in 4.7, this video could also be considered as a way to try and guess what his new quest may be about. To start this video, I think I should talk about the main aspect that got my brain cells working overtime: Ena the Order and Xipe the Harmony. Just a heads up, I'm not gonna define Ena or Xipe as they do in the game. It would make the video way more complicated than it already is. Ena the Order was one of the most ancient Aeons, and she had a very important role in the universe. She created it. It is said that she appeared not long before the end of the Dusk Wars, which is the event that wiped out the Leviathans that used to rule over everything, and according to Sunday's narration, she created the universe in 7 days. She restored all existence on the first day. She created a grand lyre with which she created the sun and the moon on the second day. She created language on the third day. She decided what was right and what was wrong on the fourth day. She created the law on the fifth day. She used the grand lyre to create music and used law to dictate the form on the sixth day. And she imbued the word with meaning, perfecting all things in heaven and on earth on the seventh day, when she also took a break. This is when the people realized that they were puppets in her hands, because the Order decided everything for them, so they cast her away into the abyss of oblivion and welcomed Xipe the Harmony. We know that her death happened during the Swarm disaster, when she made an unknown pact with Qlipoth the Preservation, potentially against Ouroboros the Voracity, but she died before she could fulfill her side of the deal, and because their paths were similar, she was absorbed by Xipe the Harmony, who then helped Qlipoth, Aha the Elation, Hu the Equilibrium, and Akivili the Trailblaze, defeating Teyzeroth the Propagation. To conclude Ena's section, she is depicted as a huge puppet, looking over the cosmos she created, while an eye is staring at her. This depiction represents her fairness and magnificence, but also the fact that she used to observe the actions of the mortals to ensure order, especially because she couldn't tolerate chaos and strife. Xipe the Harmony instead basically promotes love above else. She wants people to be united like a big family, helping each other so that no one is left behind and no one oppresses anyone. She is the amalgamation of thousands of entities who sing a harmonious melody of joy. She is depicted as a woman with 3 faces, and her body is made of puzzle pieces of the color of the universe. Differently from Ena, who held the cosmos between her hands, we could say that in Xipe's case, she is the cosmos, it decorates her body. Despite the latest missions being on Penacony, we didn't really learn more about Xipe anyway. Now, switching to Genshin Impact, you probably already guessed why Ena's story reminds me of Teyvat. I think that Ena probably represents the Primordial One. She emerged during the age of the Leviathans, which are dragons, just like the Primordial One arrived on the old world ruled by the 7 dragon sovereigns, and one of their descendants' constellation is Leviathan Judicator. Ena created a universe, while the Primordial One created Phanes, who then created a microcosm. Interestingly, Ena created language, and if the Primordial One did the same, it could explain why studying the origins of language is a taboo. But also, just like Ena, the humans who lived in the unified nation were living a seemingly blissful life, because everything was decided by the Primordial One. Everything they needed was given to them, they just needed to live just like the Primordial One wanted them to, following his rules and what he decided to be right. Eventually, Ena was defeated by a smaller but strangely powerful being that ascended from within her universe, who took her place, just like the Primordial One was defeated by the second who came, who, I'm pretty much certain, is the one ruling over the microcosm. What could this mean though? Well, this is not the first time I've proposed this theory, but there is a chance that the Primordial One is not actually the good guy of the story, and that the second who came, and by extension the Heavenly Principles, are not the bad guys. We've been basing our knowledge about the Primordial One on what was written by the people of Enkanomiya, but why were they the only ones to be saved while the rest of the unified nation got destroyed? Could it be that, just like the people in Ena's universe, they rebelled against the Primordial One and the only ones who stayed on its side were the ones in Enkanomiya? Why didn't Astaroth release them back into the world when she found them? Was Astaroth trying to hide them from the Heavenly Principles so that they could one day grow strong and defeat them? But let's talk about the Heavenly Principles for a second. What is it that we know about this being? Yes, it seems it's a singular being, at least according to Nahida. They reshaped the world to make it inhabitable again. They fixed it with the celestial nails because it was about to collapse, and acted against Karya when they almost destroyed it again. You might say, but they wiped out an entire civilization, how can you say that they're good? Well, do we really know that they destroyed Karya? I mean, what we saw was the cubes going over the nation, but we're not exactly sure that those cubes destroyed it. For all we know, those cubes could have simply extracted the memories of the Karyans filled with forbidden knowledge, to prevent it from corrupting Irminsul more than it already was. The destruction may have been the result of the unstable and uncontrollable powers that Karya stole from beyond the sky. Lastly, remember how Ena the Order is depicted as a puppet? Doesn't that remind you about what Neuvillette had to say in this vision story? The usurper, the Primordial One, had their function ruined, and could no longer use their absolute authority to suppress the original order of this world. So the Primordial One is, strangely, almost defined as a mechanical device, rather than an actual being. Now, because Genshin Impact is mainly based on Gnosticism, I have a theory that I proposed a while ago that also sounds very similar. Vifos, basically God, created 15 female and 15 male Aeons, emanations of itself, who were supposed to work in pairs, so with each other's syzygy, to create something new. The youngest Aeon was Sophia, and because she was very young, she didn't understand how things worked, which is ironic considering that she is the Aeon of Wisdom. When she decided to create something on her own, so without her syzygy, she was cast out of the Pleroma, the totality of God's emanations. She began fearing for her life, and her confusion and longing for the Pleroma accidentally created Soul and Matter, aka Numa and Osea, but also the Demiurge, a being that created the imperfect world and the imperfect humans. Later, Vifos decided to forgive her and sent her syzygy, Theletos, the Aeon of Perfection that represents Christ, to the imperfect world to bring back Sophia and save the imperfect humans. He sent inside the world two emanations of himself, Jesus, the male emanation, and the Holy Spirit, the female one, to give humans knowledge or gnosis so that they could access the spiritual world at the end of their days. What I'm trying to say is very easy. Sophia is the Primordial One, the Demiurge is Phanes, Theletos is the second who came, and his two emanations are the Descenders that always seem to come in male and female pairs. Interestingly, the third Descender literally became the Gnosis, and since then, specific humans also started receiving visions, inferior versions of the Gnosis. Now, going back to Penacony, Sunday told us the entire history of the planet, so how it went from a prison under the IPC to the planet of festivities. And I think this may be used to explain what happened on Teyvat since the unified nation to the Cataclysm, so the first 5 cycles or Samsaras of Teyvat. As we just said, the planet was originally a prison of the IPC, where countless inmates were brought to excavate dream bubbles to prevent the catastrophe Qlipoth is working hard to stop. This represents the Primordial One bringing humanity and releasing it into Teyvat, so Penacony's prison is the unified nation. Then one day, Hanunu, one of the inmates, led a rebellion against the IPC, freeing the inmates from their prisons and pushing the corporation away. I think Hanunu here may be the second who came, which means that it's not an entity that arrived from somewhere in space, but someone the Primordial One brought to Teyvat, who acquired a set of powers that allowed them to defeat the Primordial One and take over Teyvat. On Penacony, this marked the second historical phase that turned the prison into the land of the exiles, which in Teyvat is the beginning of the Envoy Age. Later, the Astral Express arrived to Penacony, and Mikhail decided to stay and help Hanunu in his fight against the IPC, creating a place for the inmates to live in. The land of the exiles saw the birth of 7 major lineages, which could represent the 7 nations of Teyvat, or at least their layout since the gods didn't exist yet, let alone the Archons. It was also said that Penacony was covered by snow, but the first buds were beginning to sprout, which is what we know about Teyvat during the Envoy Age, a moment in history when everything was freezing cold, with the exception of a few places like Vindagnir that began to, let's say, defrost. Anyway, Mikhail in this case would be the first descender, the Heavenly Principles, who for all we know is ruling over Teyvat in the second who came stead, just like Mikhail has worked behind the scenes for ages as the Watchmaker to carry on Hanunu's mission. The Age of the Exiles began reaching its end when the people began fighting against each other. This caused the sky to tremble and the earth was on the brink of collapse. On Teyvat, this is the end of the Envoy Age, when, just like Apep told us, the Earth was on the brink of collapse as well and the celestial nails descended from the sky. Then the family arrived on Penacony, spreading the teachings of Xipe the Harmony. The family here represents the second descender, but probably also the birth of the first gods, who appeared around the end of the Envoy Age, like Kapatsir on Tsurumi Island. The family's arrival marked the beginning of the next phase of Penacony, the Land of Dreams, which on Teyvat is the one that I call of the gods of old. The arrival of the gods was essentially what defined Teyvat as we know it in the present, and the Land of Dreams served the same function in Penacony's history. Without the gods, Teyvat wouldn't have had the Archons, and without the Land of Dreams, Penacony wouldn't have become the Planet of Festivities, the fourth phase of Penacony's history. The Planet of Festivities was created when Gopher Wood became the Dream Master. He brought the other bloodlines under him, which could represent the Archon Wars in Teyvat, and the people started losing themselves into their desires, forgetting about their problems, leaving them out in reality, which represents the new order of Teyvat, in which the people were guided by the Archons and didn't think about the reality of things anymore. From here on out, the similarities between the two games become tricky, especially because Gopher Wood, as you'll see in a moment, represents a lot of things. First of all, he represents the third descender of Teyvat. He was sent by the Harmony, but he secretly followed the path of the Order, and he died because of that by the hands of a member of the family. Then he took on a different form, that of multiple people and crows, and all of them were the Dream Master, just like the third descender was disposed of by the Heavenly Principles and was turned into multiple pieces, the Gnosis. As we said before, Gopher Wood is going to represent multiple entities of Teyvat. For starters, he and his followers represent Karya, both the Crimson Moon and the Eclipse dynasties. Gopher Wood was the one who started the new Beyond the Sky Choir, Ena's faction, just like the Crimson Moon dynasty laid the foundation for their successors with the story of the Descenders. As we said before, Gopher Wood was disposed of by one of the family members, which makes me think that someone from Karya did the same thing to the king of the Crimson Moon dynasty, probably the one who then founded the Eclipse dynasty. But Gopher Wood also represents King Ermin, because he adopted 2 orphan twins and brought them to Penacony. He secretly taught them the path of the Order, so that one of them, the Destined One, would have helped him usurp Xipe's powers and bring back the Order to Penacony. Of course, the similarities are obvious. King Ermin summoned the twins, and only one of them was a Descender, capable of controlling the secrets from beyond the sky, the forbidden knowledge, that he wanted to use to dispose of the Heavenly Principles. Now, as you probably already guessed, I think Sunday and Robin are Either and Lumine, with the only difference being that Sunday is Lumine while Robin is Either. King Erman believed that Lumine would have been the one capable of achieving his goal, but she wasn't the descender. Similarly, Sunday summoned Dominicus and tried to achieve Gopherwood's goal, but he miserably failed. This also means that what we experienced in Star Rail version 2.2 is probably a recreation of the Cataclysm of Teyvat, a failed catastrophe that ended up with both Sunday and Robin being imprisoned for their crimes, just like Either and Lumine ended up being caught by Sasti. Oh, and by the way, just saying, I think you all saw the cubes floating around Sunday and were reminded of the Cataclysm, right? We don't know what is going to happen on Penacony next, but if the stories are actually similar, I would expect Sunday being released right away. He will probably try to fix his mistakes and embark on an adventure across the cosmos, but he will eventually fall back onto the path of the Order. Robin, on the other hand, will be left in prison for a while longer, but when she is eventually released, she will embark on a journey as well, looking for his brother. Considering that Jade is coming to Penacony because of the events that happened, I guess we'll find out Sunday's next steps in 2.3. As for what Genshin Impact's future may hold, there could be a nice twist in the story soon. The Traveler is currently being led to believe that the Heavenly Principles are evil, just like we were starting to have doubts about the Harmony, considering how the family was acting weird in Penacony. Either will also be convinced by the Tsaritsa to join her cause, her war against the Heavenly Principles, but in the end he will realize that they are not the enemy and that Pierro has been tricking the Tsaritsa all along. As a Kanrian, someone who lived in a nation built on the ruins of the unified nation, he may be a follower of the Primordial One, and as a consequence his goal could be to usurp the powers of the Heavenly Principles to bring back the original order of Teyvat, so the people would be prisoners again and under his complete control. To do that, he might be gathering the Gnosis to bring the third Descender back to life, the only Descender that really tried to defy the Heavenly Principles. And with Azeroth's power, he could travel back in time to the one moment in history when Teyvat witnessed the biggest concentration of forbidden knowledge, Khaenri'ah of 500 years ago. Think about it, what would happen if he gained the powers of the Heavenly Principles and destroyed the microcosm to release it onto the old world, just like he basically promised Rosalind? He would become the most powerful being on the planet, and no one will be able to defy him anymore, not even the Traveler probably. Now, going back to Mikhail for a second, there's another interesting aspect that is somewhat unexplainable, but that could also hint at something huge. He arrived on Penacony 10 Amber eras ago, which is not exactly the most useful calendar in the game, since it all depends on when Qlipoth decides to swing his hammer. Still, according to the game, the shortest Amber era lasted 76 years, so even then, Mikhail has been on Penacony at least 760 years. Now, the problem is that Mimosa met and worked with him in his office, so he had been alive until not long before we arrived on Penacony. How did he live for so long? Well, your guess is as good as mine. Still, what's interesting is that he created Misha, a child version of him, to help the Nameless deal with the Stellaron on Penacony, and then Cloaky appeared as well. Now, as I said before, Star Rail and Genshin Impact are two games that hint at each other, but their stories are not identical, so we all know that the Trailblazer is the actual counterpart of the Traveler. If Star Rail 2.2 represents the Cataclysm, then who does Cloaky leaving the Dreamscape and joining the Trailblazer as a small companion remind you of? Could it be that the Heavenly Principles being asleep are somewhat similar to Mikhail's eternal sleep state, and that Paimon is, in reality, a smaller version of the Heavenly Principles who's accompanying us in our travels? And yes, I said that Mikhail is in an eternal sleep state because, excluding when dormancy is involved, if someone dies in Penacony, they're sent back to reality, which also means that if someone dies in reality, their alter ego in the dream should disappear as well. Then how comes that Mikhail's body is still on that chair? To conclude this chapter, I have one last weird thing / curiosity that happened on Penacony. Do you remember this scene?
Please send my regards to the conductor, Pom-Pom.
The fact that Gallagher made that short pause before talking about Pom-Pom makes me think that something's off. Pom-Pom seems to have been on the Express when Mikhail was trailblazing, but in reality, no one knows when Pom-Pom appeared or where it came from. For most people, it's always been there, but when Himeko found the Express, it sounded like the train was empty. Maybe considering Gallagher's unique circumstances, he knows some hidden truths about Pom-Pom, hence the pause he made. I think Pom-Pom is either the personification of the Astral Express itself, or it's related to fully the Remembrance, but this is a topic for a whole different video. Before the last two chapters of this video, there is something I wanna quickly talk about. I think that Star Rail 2.2 gave us some hints about Natlan, very subtle hints I might say. Apart from Xipe's name coming from Xipe Totec, one of the major Aztec gods, we were told that our next destination should be Melustanin, the Agate world. Of course, this is hinting at Natlan because the Pyro character ascension material is called Agnidus Agate. It's also interesting that the previous option was Lusaka, an oceanic planet that sounds like Fontaine. Now, Melustanin is one of the initial sites of the Stellaron disaster, which makes me think that we will learn a lot about Teyvat's genesis, but this is also the planet where Idrilla the Beauty ascended. Are we going to enter a beauty pageant to pick the next Archon? Jokes aside, Melustanin is celebrated as a planet of undying allure, and the people of Teyvat do go to Natlan on vacation and then spend the rest of their time thinking about when they'll be able to go back. Lastly, we've been told over and over again that Sunday might have been trying to revive an Aeon, which could be another hint. I do believe the Murata is basically and repeatedly dying and coming back to life, you know, like a phoenix, but maybe something happened because of the cataclysm and the endless ring of war is a way to give her enough energy to finally come back. What I know for certain is that I can't wait for 5.0 to be released. What I want to talk about next is Penacony's structure. We are right at the reverie in reality, where we fall asleep to enter the dreamscape, the sweet dream, where the people enjoy their time. But we also know that below that there's the first and original dreamscape, Dreamflux Reef, a place where people are not allowed to go, a place that people don't even know of its existence. As you can see on the screen, I'm placing reality above everything because I'm playing on the concept of falling asleep, and you normally fall toward a lower place. Now, if you take this illustration and put it upside down, you will see the exact same illustration about Teyvat that I proposed in my video about Arlecchino. Below there's the old world, and above there's Teyvat, which is split, just like Izumo and Takamagahara, in two hemispheres. In the one closer to the old world, there's the inhabitable Teyvat, the place we're exploring and where the people live, while in the other half there's the Abyss, where the unified nation, the original nation of Teyvat, ended up when the world was capsized during the war between the Primordial One and the second who came. I won't say that this capsizing event was confirmed in the game because no one straight up told us that it happened, but it's sustained by three main occurrences. Many ancient places on Teyvat are actually upside down, and the most evident is the unnamed city in the chasm. In the latest Iridescent Arataki Rocking for Life Tour de Force of Awesomeness event in version 4.6, the last song was called
I got reincarnated as an Onikabuto and flipped the world upside down,
which, apart from the isekai anime title, it's about a world capsizing. And lastly, in the Valurian Mirage in version 3.8, they made it a mission to repeat over and over again that something happened to the bottle world and that it was as if everything went upside down. Talking about the Valurian Mirage, and I promise that this is the last thing I'll talk about in this video, the small world inside the bottle worked because of this core that acted as a string projector. Basically everything inside the bottle is created by the core. Now inside the core there's the Shinro casket, the remains of a yokai, the Shinkiro, that can listen to the wishes of the people to build up Shinki, which gives it power. The core of the Valurian Mirage has been able to function because multiple people entered this bottle land and created what they couldn't create in reality. They made their dream come true thanks to the power of the Shinro casket. Here we have something that sounds very similar to a major concept from Honkai Impact 3rd. The two eras. In Honkai Impact there's the previous era and the current era, two very similar, let's say, histories of the planet. Most of the people from the previous era appeared in the current era as well as similar people with similar paths in life. In Star Rail, we could say that the people in Penacony's dream are different versions of themselves in reality, because they can do or be whatever they want, but the better example is the cross-universe doppelganger between Honkai Impact and Star Rail, basically different but similar people with very similar ideals. In the Valurian Mirage instead, the people who visited it left something behind as a memento, and that caused some of the Hydra Eidolons to take on their form and passions. Same but different people with similar but different paths. The real ones returned to reality and had to face it, while the Eidolon versions kept fulfilling their impossible dreams. This makes me think, could it be that the people of Teyvat are originally from the old world, so a new version of them? A version that keeps updating or advancing every time they die, when their memories are stored in the Irminsul fruits and they are reused to create a new human. Anyway, back to the Shinro casket, it is essentially a huge clan that grants wishes, and that is completed by a pearl. Ring any bells? The Stellaron in Penacony lied inside the Grand Theater, the first building that appeared in the Dreamscape and from which everything else was created. So the Stellaron is the core and stream projector of the sweet dream of Penacony, while the pearl inside the clam looks awfully similar to the Genesis Pearl, which, as the name implies, may be the core from which the entirety of Teyvat was created. The one thing that the Descenders, or at least the ones from the Battle Pass, were looking for. This leads to a very uncomfortable theory. The microcosm of Teyvat may be a dream world. I mean, it's not that much of a secret really. Nahida is the avatar of Irminsul and her powers rely on dreams, so it would make sense that Irminsul's functions lie in the realm of dreams as well. While A basically almost told us when she said,
"Waking world, you seem woven from the stuff of dreams. All shall fade away."
Teyvat is potentially a dreamscape that wasn't supposed to exist. Originally, Phanes was supposed to release the world onto the old world, but he decided to defy the Primordial One and he created a microcosm instead. So Teyvat became probably a temporary nursery for the humans while the Primordial One was terraforming the old world to welcome them. The plan, of course, was halted by the second Who came and the word was never released. If I have to guess, just like on Penacony, the people were aware of the difference between dream and reality, but slowly they got lost in the dream and started believing that they were indeed living in a real world. The fact that the Traveler is the only one who is not affected by Irminsul and can still remember the real course of the events is because he, although unaware of it, is not fully lost in the dream, so his mind is still awake. The same goes for other characters like Nicole, Alice, and probably also Pierro, who are more than aware about Irminsul changing things. They have been awake from the beginning, or they woke up later for one reason or another, so their memories can't be altered anymore. When it comes to Lumine though, it would make sense that the end of the journey is the awakening, but wouldn't it make more sense that when she reached the end, she became part of that because she finally fell asleep? And that's it, I hope you liked the video. If you did, don't forget to leave a thumbs up, and if you're interested in Genshin Impact theory videos, consider subscribing. I already know what's gonna happen in the comment section. I've been preparing myself to face the wrath of the viewers, which always comes whenever I come up with these kind of theories. Anyway, I think I'll see you all again, hopefully when and if the guy from the Saurian event tells us why on earth the people of Natlan are nowhere to be found except in their own nation. In the meantime, thank you all for watching, and until next time, over and out.